Hey everyone, I hope you're having an amazing week so far. And we've been talking about being committed to our character. And my hope for this series is that it wouldn't just be something we focus on for a couple of weeks or even a month, but that this would really be like a catalyst and a trigger to make us aware of the importance of our character, and that we would carry like a lifelong awareness and commitment to our character. My prayer is that in 12 months' time, in 5 years' time, that we'd still be just as committed to our character as we have been during this series. One of the biggest threats to our character is something I'm calling character cracks. You know, Paul talks about us being as jars of clay that carry the excellence and the glory and the power of Christ. But we ourselves are like fragile jars of clay. Now, one thing I've noticed is that clay jars and crockery is prone to getting cracks in it. Sometimes we're really aware of our own character cracks, but other times we're not. And I think it's really important in this journey of being committed to our character to actually invite people that we trust, who we know love us, who we know are for us, invite them in and ask them the question, hey, do you see a crack in my character that you believe would be good for me to work on and to let God work on in my life? And you know, maybe your spouse is a great person to ask this question to. Maybe a life group leader, maybe a really close friend. I think it's important because we're aware of some of the cracks, but sometimes we're not. And here's why I think it's important to work on these cracks, is because they are really a threat to the strength of our character in the future. You know, sometimes we can have the tendency to want to hide our character cracks from God, from other people. It's almost like that piece of crockery on the mantelpiece that has a crack on it, and we turn it around to display only the strengths, but really behind the scenes there's a weakness. And we're good at hiding, we're good at ignoring, we're good at sort of putting it off in the too hard basket or I'll get to it later list. But I want to encourage us today that instead of doing that, let's be people who are courageous enough to bring our character cracks to the light, to bring them to the Lord, to bring them into the presence of God, to show them to Him freely, and not let the fear of the pain of dealing with it or the fear of how uncomfortable it might be stop us from letting God get His hands on that crack. You know, the reality is God is the master potter and we are the clay. I love how Paul talks about his weaknesses in 2 Corinthians 12 and verse 9. You know, it starts off by quoting what the Lord said to him. And Jesus said to Paul, "My grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness." So then Paul says, "So now I'm glad to boast about my weaknesses so that the power of Christ can work through me." You know, when pottery is first being formed, when clay jars are first being created, they're very soft and supple and can be molded into whatever shape the potter desires. But later on, you know, when they're hard and fast, we kind of think that if they break, well then they're rendered useless. But I discovered something interesting. Somebody showed me this just the other day, is a Japanese technique for restoring cracks and broken pottery. It's called kintsugi, and it's the Japanese art of golden repair. Now, what's so interesting is that, I'll show you a photo of this, is that they take pottery that's beautiful, that was treasured, but for some reason had got cracks in it or even totally broken. And through this art of kintsugi, golden repair, they actually restore the pottery. And instead of hiding the cracks, they actually illuminate the cracks by filling it with a compound that is filled with gold or silver, and they actually turn it into something beautiful. And what I've found is that when we surrender our character cracks to the Lord and we invite His presence in, we invite His grace into that area of our life, like Jesus said to Paul, His grace is sufficient for us. His power works perfectly in our weaknesses. And so now what was once a weakness can now become a strength. So I want to encourage you, let's bring those cracks in our character out of hiding, out of the shadows. Let's bring them to the light. Let's put it in the potter's hands and let Him strengthen our character in a way that will shine the brilliance of His grace and His power even through our weakness. Well, hey, I'm so excited for this Sunday because we have a special guest speaker, Pastor Scott Jones from GraceLife Church in Ellenbrook. And I know that Scott is going to bring an incredible message to help us kickstart actually a brand new series. And I believe you're going to be incredibly blessed as he comes and ministers to us. So I want to encourage you to make every effort to be with us on Sunday. Let's come together, family, and let's be blessed by what God's going to bring through this guest speaker. And why don't you invite a friend for Sunday? Why don't you just literally call someone that you know and say, hey, I'd love you to join me. We've got a guest at our church. Why don't you come and visit our church this weekend? As always, you are invited to our 9:30 prayer meeting on Sunday morning. It's powerful what God is doing in those times. We love you to come and be a part of that. We love you guys. We hope to see you Sunday. Have an amazing rest of the week.